good evening, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Business PNG for the year 2015. Anyone who has been to Goroka in the Eastern Highlands province has most probably witnessed Goroka's bilum mamas selling the bilums in the heart of town. The eye-catching colors and designs are hard to miss, and so are the women who faithfully sit selling their bilums day in and day out. The Business PNG had the privilege to visit Goroka for an exclusive interview with the hard-working and often forgotten bilum mamas. The plight of Goroka's bilum mamas is very real when visiting Goroka town. With their colorful designs and unique talent and full display in the heart of town, one often forgets the man hours it takes to weave the bilums and distance they have to travel, many as far as the southern Highlands and Chimbu, all in the goal of selling their craftsmanships at the makeshift bilum market adjacent to the Bird of Paradise Hotel and in front of Goroka's government administration building, braving the sun, rain, and the often chilly weather of cold place Goroka.
Sun, rain, people are talking about no got well of some again, people no got garden. Also, I'm living blom, I'm start Goroka town.
When the Business PNG team showed up with our cameras and tripods, many questioned our motives and were skeptical about our purpose of filming, claiming that many camera crews and all Bigpla line come over and film what they want and disappear, making profit off of their films and TV shows, but give nothing in return, oft-times making the bilum mamas feel like they are being taken advantage of. However, when we told them that we were there to tell their story free of charge, they quickly opened up, telling us that they had plenty of stories to tell about their work and what they consider the bilum factory, Goroka.
Factory bilum, so I'm making kind design. Na kala tu miplas puting good I'm making. So price plan mi plus axim 100, 70. You miss a kilo size na kala now you miss a price mol bilum lo mi plan.
Many, if not all of these women, operate informally and are not recognized by the government or big business, therefore are not protected by laws that govern their trade. On average, most women sell about 4 to 3 bilums a day, making roughly more than 400 kina on a good day. This number triples when tourists flock into the township on special occasions, such as the Goroka Show, an annual event that attracts hundreds of tourists, both locally and internationally. This demonstrates the economic viability of the skill and the bilum product.
Look, blow me long. When something where all mama you walk in bilum now. Bilum emoli, all work send him all kind style now. All walking planting now. Now all go find all market, all like Sarim long street, all touristic come all like Sarim. But people must make him this like come one pla, something whereby all Mary he can use him long Sarim, all Arab country na all can make him some money out long this.
Though it is nearly impossible to carve a profitable business from their skills, that doesn't mean they haven't tried. One of the more successful bilum makers has commercialized her skills and has showcased her designs to overseas markets. Florence Staukae Kamel, also known as Bilum Mary, designs dresses and other forms of modern clothing, all by using the art of bilum weaving. Her work includes weaving dresses, trousers, ponchos, and accessories, such as scarves and ties, all using bilum weaving. Her more popular items are made with natural fiber. Florence's work has made it as far as the runways of London and New York, showcasing the bilum amongst more established fashion designers, a tremendous fit in itself.
From where I'm working with bilum, I'm into the fashion part of it, and also with the fashion, I've taken bilum as far as New York for the. It was out on the runway, and you know I was really excited seeing my bilum out on the runway in New York, and I actually went to under International Trade Center.
Florence claims she hasn't had much help from the government, besides a few grants here and there and sponsored trips abroad. She has become this successful through her own sheer determination and with the support of her family.
Being a single mom, going into business, and turning around and seeing my brothers and at my back is amazing.
Despite the challenges and the lack of sustainable support from the government, the bilum mamas persevere and the art of bilum making continues. Seen as a skill reserved solely for women, many men have taken up the skill. Men such as Florence's brother, Moses Kamel, who has always been an avid supporter of Florence's campaign.
It so happened that I was interested in sewing. Now I actually bought 2 shirts for 30 kina each. They were my favorite shirts. And then after some years, they tend to wear out. And I was looking for that. And then I got into, well, something at the back of my mind told me that, you know, you cannot find it here. You cannot find those shirts in Ley, Medang, Moresby. Why not do it yourself? So that was the start of everything. I started, well, sewing. And I started sewing a number of shirts. And then people got interested and they came and I sold them shirts. And
Moses and Florence teamed up in 2006 to design Team PNG's outfit for the opening ceremony of the Commonwealth Games in Melbourne.
happened that it was, I think, 2006. She was assigned to do neckties for all the athletes going down to the Commonwealth Games. So she came up with, I think, 54 ties, and she wanted me to sew those ones. So I sewed all the ties, neckties, and the athletes wore those ones when they went down to Australia for the Commonwealth Games.
Recently, through Florence's persistent campaigning, international organizations such as the International Trade Center, a subsidiary organization of the World Trade Organization, and the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development has taken notice of the art of bilum weaving, recognizing the skill as a highly tradable skill which can be used to economically empower women.
And ITC, International Trade Center, has rescued us. And we have a big job to do now. And I believe that there's something better out there. Because I've come from like 12, 13 years, I've been looking for market. I've been called a bilum Mary. And I think, I'm believing that I've achieved most of my goal now. And mostly with having the support from ITC coming in, is a big achievement.
Though not as lucrative as other sectors in the country, bilum weaving is finally attracting international recognition and appreciation, and the market is opening up for the women, which is undoubtedly a positive step for the bilum mamas. Only time will tell what the future holds for these women and their trade, but they are hopeful. In this edition of the OBG Corner, editorial manager of the PNG report, Marc Venditti, chats with the resident coordinator of the United Nations Development Programme, Roy Trivedy.
Good evening and welcome back to Oxford Business Group Corner, the OBG Corner. Our guest tonight is Roy Trivedy. He is the resident representative for the United Nations. The United Nations, for people that might not know it, was established in the aftermath of the Second World War. Specifically, the name came from one of the former American presidents that was keen about eradicating poverty as well as putting together the ashes of many countries that were suffering after the war. The United Nations has a broad mission in PNG and just about all over the world, so we're very keen to talk to Roy Trivedy tonight. Roy, thank you very much and welcome to the show.
Good evening, Marco. Great to be here.
Thank you, welcome. Roy, United Nations has some very ambitious goals. One of them is eradicating poverty, as we were saying in the introduction, and the Millennium Development Goals, it's something that Papua New Guinea is struggling a little bit at the moment. So you have a tough job, but at the same time you can say it also that's a great opportunity to make a difference in Papua New Guinea. How would you describe your job and what you're trying to achieve at the moment?
Sure. Yeah. Look, 15 years ago, global leaders got together in the year 2000 to sign this pledge and a commitment, long-term commitment on eradicating poverty worldwide. And actually, if you look globally, we've probably made faster progress on reducing poverty and improving people's lives than at any point in history. That's at a global level. Right. In Papua New Guinea, we of course are also a signatory to that to the Millennium Development Goals, and although we are unlikely to meet any of the 8 goals fully, but we have definitely made huge progress, particularly in the last 3 years, where we've seen things like more children in schools for the first time, improvements in the quality of health and other services, and we're seeing also much more infrastructure being built up and so on. So there are reasons why Papua New Guinea is unlikely to meet the Millennium Development Goals, but having said that, we have definitely made progress. And of course, when global leaders signed this in the year 2000, everybody knew that it would be an unfinished revolution, that we would need to continue beyond 2015.
I see. Coming into the studio today, both you and I were stuck in traffic, and being in Port Moresby nowadays feels like we could be just in any metropolis anywhere. But we know that PNG, it's not only a Port Moresby. And unfortunately, when you look at the social indicators, it tells us a different story. 25% of kids are not attending schools, 40% living below $1. There seems to be still a great imbalance between the major urban centers of PNG and the rest of the Papua New Guineans that live everywhere else. So would you say that is the biggest task for this country?
Well, one of the tasks is definitely trying to think about how do we improve the lives of all Papua New Guineans. And I think you know that last year we produced, at the end of last year, 2014, we produced the National Human Development Report. This report, which set out some of the challenges that the country faces. Now, on the one hand, this country has had phenomenal growth, 14 consecutive years of double-digit growth, which is incredible.
It is.
But at the same time, the challenge that the country faces is how do we translate the wealth from all of that growth into the well-being for people, so that all Papua New Guineans, whether they're living in Port Moresby, or in any of the other urban areas, or in the rural areas where the majority of our people are, can really start to see the benefits. Better health, better education, and better jobs actually, so that they can improve their own lives. And that's part of the challenge that we face. And I think government is really trying to focus on this work, but so are other people, because all of this can't be just left to governments. Absolutely. At the end of the day, development has to also include other private sector, it needs to include others as well.
And that's a good point you're making, and that's the reason why we want to talk to you today, because in a way we feel that each businessman or each politician or each policymakers or decision makers sort of concentrate on their own sphere of influences, and there are very few institutions that they're out there sort of with a bird view of what is happening, and the United Nations definitely is one of them. You are there trying to put those pieces together. Do you feel that in a way that's what society also need, working a bit closer than we've been doing for so many years, less isolated?
Yes, for sure. And I think one of the things is that we need our leaders in this country to be talking about some of the issues that can really make a difference in people's lives, bringing the best experience from the world, from the global perspective into Papua New Guinea, but also telling Papua New Guinea's story to the rest of the world. And the story here is actually, in many ways, a really good story to tell. It's a story that, yes, we may not have made progress in terms of MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, but actually things are improving, and it will take time, but we are on the right path. We just need to make sure that progress is solid, that we don't waver, and that we really follow through on the commitments that are now being made and continue to improve people's lives.
I see. Talking specifically about Papua New Guinea, the paradox of plenty, this is something that unfortunately affects PNG. Can you tell us about it, and what can be done to address this issue?
Yes. Paradox of plenty, as the Human Development Report mentioned,
yes,
is a situation where money is being generated, income is being generated,
yes,
but most of that income is starting to leak out of the country into tradable exports, but at the same time we're not improving the capacities and capabilities of our own people. Okay, so what it means is that we see money leaking out of the country, perhaps investments being made, private entrepreneurs investing elsewhere, but not sufficiently in our country. And what the report tried to do is to say, how do we ensure that we actually strengthen the education, the skills, the capabilities of our people, and ensure that we have good systems to make sure that we translate the wealth to well-being and can really follow that through. In many countries around the world, Marco, you know that countries that are very rich in mineral resources, one of the big issues is that inevitably with large amounts of mineral resources and so on, it can lead to conflict,
yes,
with growing inequality and so on, and it leads to bad governance. And so what we need to do is to try and make sure we don't follow the path of some of the other countries that have gone down that path, but make sure that instead that we really use this resource boom to improve the lives of our people, to make sure that we have a sovereign wealth fund, to make sure that we have extractive industries transparency initiative that's really being taken forward, and ultimately to invest in our own people.
Well, the numbers are astonishing. Since independence, US $60 billion from extractive industries were generated in PNG, and there is very little to be seen when you walk down the streets in terms of infrastructure and well-being of the man on the street. There seems to be still a lot to go for PNG.
Yeah, one of the points that we make in the report is that, we are having record levels of high growth rates, okay, every year. GDP growth is been high. But this isn't the first time in Papua New Guinea's history that has happened.
We've seen that in the 90s.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And what happened in the mid-90s, of course, was that having had high levels of growth, much of that money that was generated then was either frittered away, bad investment, bad decisions, lack of real clear leadership to follow through on some of the things. And this time around, now we have this opportunity. We really need to grasp it and make sure that we not only improve the lives of people now, but also future generations, of Papua New Guineans who are yet to be born, the current set of who are, in their teens now. We really improve their livelihoods to give them a real fighting chance, because in a globalized world, they are going to have to compete
very tough
with everybody else,
yes,
and that is going to be difficult otherwise.
Very good point. PNG at the moment, the reputation of these countries has improved dramatically in the last few years, mainly because the completion of the ExxonMobil LNG project, no doubts about that. At the same time, a lot of people are saying, well, the project is over now, not much was left in the country when it comes to synergies with the private sector. Do you think that should have been done more and can be done more for future projects to create that sort of link and make sure that trickles down into the local economy more than is the case at the moment?
Yes, definitely. I mean, one of the things I think together with yourself and others, we were all at the PNG Australia Business
Yes.
Council meeting this week, the forum there in Leh. And one of the points I was making, at least in my discussions with people, was that, we've had the first generation of the extractive boom, the LNG. And there are definitely things that has helped us to do, that has positioned the country well to be able to do more in future. We're now seeing the second generation, and the Prime Minister himself spoke about this, new investments coming on board and so on. And what we need to do now in the second generation is to make sure that we really start to use the trained workforce that we have. Those Papua New Guineans who have been trained, who understand, who have some of the skills, etc., to put them, give them more authority, give them more leadership roles and so on. And that needs to continue, and then use the revenue generated from these resources to improve the lives of people, not just in Port Moresby, but throughout the country. That's the challenge that we face, and we have a limited amount of time to do that, because if we don't start doing that very, very soon, you lose opportunities and so on.
I see. The clock is ticking, guys. You have an interesting project, which is the Kumul changes. Maybe you want to tell us about that, because
Sure.
you're coming to the final stages of that.
Okay. We launched a business challenge competition with the Kumul Foundation, with support also from the Australian government, yes, the High Commission here, but also with working with the IBBM, the Institute for Banking and Business Management here. And we selected, we launched the competition last year. We had 300 plus applicants, young entrepreneurs with great ideas and so on. We selected in the first round just over 40 of those. We have now trained them for the last several months. And in July, at the end of July, we have got them pitching their ideas to a set of investors, both domestic investors, Papua New Guineans, but we hope also people from outside the country who hopefully can put money behind some of these ideas. Right. And some of the ideas are quite brilliant. I can't wait to tell the rest of the country to hear about some of the ideas. Some are very simple things that can really make a difference to people's lives.
And these guys out there, investors, are very shrewd and very tough to be convinced. We know about that.
Definitely.
Yes.
But you know, we really need that, what we are calling an ecosystem, a young entrepreneurs ecosystem of people who are taking risks, who are really putting themselves out there, no longer looking just to governments to have jobs, etc. But we know everywhere in every part of the world, actually the majority of jobs are created not by the public sector, they're created by the private sector. And this is our initiative in Papua New Guinea. We will take stock after July to see how this first round has worked, but we're looking forward also now thinking about the next few rounds of this, maybe doing it over 3-4 years to try and get a whole lot of young entrepreneurs, bright ideas who have the vision but also the support to take their ideas further.
I will be surprised, I'm sure, to see what the young Papua New Guineans will be able to come out with. And talking about taking chances, Roy, for you to know, was born in Kenya. He's Indian by origin. He has a British passport, and for the past 2 years has been living in PNG. So this is a man that likes to take chances. Once you'll go, well, actually, when you go home, what do you bring back about PNG? What do you tell people about this distant part of the world that nobody really knows out there much about it? Yeah?
It's very true. When I've worked for the last 30 years in different parts of Africa, South Asia, Central Asia, and so on. When I was coming to the Pacific for this role, I had to say I wasn't quite aware of first how huge the Pacific is, the area that it covers and so on. I also didn't know the specifics. I knew there were lots of small island states and so on. I didn't quite realize just how big Papua New Guinea is and also how complex it is as a society and so on. And luckily, we have the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea going to the UK in June. True. And it will be a chance for my family and I think many others who have some links with Papua New Guinea, but also others who don't have Papua New Guinea links, to really understand a bit more about what this country is, why it's such an important country for this region, but also has a global contribution to make. Absolutely. Because of its forestry, its natural resources, but also because of its people, the ideas and so on that we're looking to take forward.
Let's face it, this is a beautiful corner of the world and we all should protect it. And one of the important tasks of the United Nations is also climate change, addressing some of the issues around these devastating problems for many parts of the world, especially the Pacific, low-lying islands. We don't want to finish on a negative note, obviously, but this is an important issue. There is a very important conference coming up in December in Paris. So do you feel that this part of the world is doing enough, at least putting their effort and strengths together to lobby those multinational institutions out there that could really implement the changes? Do you feel that enough has been done, or each country is still working a little bit too isolated with the rest?
I think the issues around climate change are huge for this world. In our generation, we're probably the last generation, Marco, that has the ability to help make some changes in terms of policy, the way in which governments, but the way that countries work. If we don't grasp this, we are going to miss a huge opportunity. In Papua New Guinea, we are very, very fortunate because one of the things that the the Minister for Planning and Charles Abel has talked about,
Yes.
is his policy on responsible sustainable development. And he has laid out, and together with government, has laid out a vision of Papua New Guinea's development. And it's not following the conventional development model of, industrialize, etc.,
Right.
burn your forests and so on. What we're trying to do here is to protect our forests, our fauna and our biodiversity, but at the same time use the global resources to help other countries paying for Papua New Guinea to preserve that. And this actually helps. It's a global good. It's something that helps the whole of the planet. And I hope that we will see that policy really being followed through. And it's what the United Nations system, but also other development partners, are here to help with. We've made some good progress. We need to go further and faster.
Much
We
more
all
to
know
do.
that.
Right, I have a sort of a forward leaning question. We all know that the extractive industries will bring a certain amount of wealth into this country for many years to come. But if you're looking also at the rest, where the growth is going to come, apart from income, apart from real cash into the economy, where is the growth is going to come?
Marco, I think that, definitely the extractives are going to continue to employ people and so on. But if we look at the last few years, what our Human Development Report showed is roughly 5% of formal sector jobs were created by the extractives. So we really need, if we're thinking about jobs and livelihoods of people, we really need to look elsewhere as well. We need to use other parts of the economy to grow. And part of that is definitely from the informal sector, the small, medium enterprises and so on. Worldwide, we know that those are the bits of the economy where we can expect more jobs to be created. And in Papua New Guinea right now, of course, the government is looking at a new SME policy, an informal sector policy, which can really spearhead some of that growth.
I see. So when we're looking at the future, we need to look at the informal economy, because this is really what needs to be addressed for the future of the nation.
Absolutely. That is where the jobs are going to be. The majority of people are going to be working, right? We need to try and formalize and get people into the formal economy, and yes, we must do as much as we can to create an enabling environment for that. But equally, we need people in the informal sector and the linkages into jobs, also into the formal economy and so on. If we don't do that now, my fear is that we will lose huge opportunity and we will continue to have a very unbalanced economy with a small number of people employed in the formal sector by the extractives and a large number of people with perhaps relatively few opportunities, perhaps less education, and really not decent jobs, who are constantly looking to try and make a living. But the security costs of operating in this country will then continue to escalate, because obviously unemployment leads people to do desperate things.
I see. You said an interesting thing before. You say we're probably one of the last generation that can actually influence governments. Why is that? That
can have a major influence on the policies around climate change.
I see.
Because there is no other generation before us that could have done it, probably because we didn't have the scientific knowledge, and there is probably, unfortunately, the way the world and the biosphere is working, we are probably the next 20 years, if we don't start to do this now and implement these things in the next 10, 15 years, we're probably never going to be able to do it. And that will have huge implications. And in terms of business, the business community, one of the things we need to think about there is the issues around disasters, frequency of natural disasters, which will only escalate. It's one of the major risks for our country, because we already know Papua New Guinea sits on this, line of volcanoes, on these tectonic plates, which are shifting, and we're a country that will face regular disasters. So we need to build the resilience of our communities.
And talking about job creation, renewable energies and renewable sources offers plenty of opportunities of jobs. We've seen that around the world. We can't wait to see that happening in PNG as well.
Yeah, the issues around renewables is critical. It's one of the reasons why the UN system, UNDP in particular, is starting to look at this and really start to invest for the first time we've just started supporting what was called from last year the Solar Mamas project. The 6 grandmothers who were trained at the Barefoot College in India to be, electronic engineers in solar, and who are now implementing those things in the villages, in Sundown, in all parts, in Enga, in different parts of the country. And it's a fantastic first, actually, for the country.
I must congratulate you. Some of those initiatives are truly fantastic. They're eye-catching, but they're actually very effective. So congratulations. Thank you very much.
And that's all we have for you tonight. For more business news, if you would simply like to view this episode again, visit MTV online at www.mtv.com.pg, or to join the conversation, like our page on Facebook for daily business news, or follow us on Twitter at Business PNG using the hashtag Business PNG. Until next week, have a pleasant evening. I'm Leon Gerari, and this is Business PNG.